that's one complete recipe. That's a double recipe, so that'll do my dogs, for my 3 dogs. It'll do them for about 5 meals, depending on the calorie count. You know, and compare as in what my dogs need and how many calories are in this recipe. I usually make 2 or 3 recipes ahead. So if I have an evening or an afternoon where I can maybe get a couple of recipes completed, I will. So I'm usually 2 or 3 recipes ahead. All of this can be frozen, which I find very helpful. I just put it in plastic containers, label it with which recipe I have, and it goes in the freezer. Now that I've prepared this, I'm going to feed it to my dogs, but what I would normally do is I would just take a regular plastic container that's reusable. I would put it in here. I use a piece of tape. This is just my method, but I use a piece of tape and a Sharpie, and I would just put this on the container and put R12, which is how I keep track of the recipes. There are 101 recipes in this book, so, and they are all numbered. They're numbered within their category, but they're also numbered in recipes. So I go by the recipe number, which in this case is 12. So I would put an R12 on here, and the whole thing would go into the freezer. Then when I need to use it, I'll pull it out. I leave it out overnight usually. It defrosts, it thaws, and then I can go ahead and use it. So I just have to be prepared enough, organized enough, that I pull one out of the freezer when I need one. So usually as I'm nearing the end of one, I'll pull out the next meal's whatever selection I decide to give them for that day. So, but I'm going to actually feed this because I don't have anything out of the freezer to feed them for their evening meal. So I am going to use this, what we've just prepared, to feed my dogs. Now in the book, each recipe, there's a little flag that tells you how many calories are in each recipe per 100 grams. So 100 grams of each recipe, in this case 100 grams of R12 is 142 calories. So I've worked out in advance how many calories a day my dogs need. I feed my dogs twice a day, so I've split that calorie amount into 2. 2 of my dogs actually get fed the same amount, and the other dog gets a little bit more. So what I've done is I've kept a book, and every time I make a recipe, I write down in that recipe, I've figured out how many calories my dogs need, how many calories are in the recipe, and I've worked out how many grams per meal my dogs each get. Once I've done that, if I were doing this for the first time, I would say, okay, I've worked this out. This is how many grams per meal my dogs need. I'm going to take that, measure that out onto my scale, and when I have that right number of grams, I take that and I put it in a measuring cup and I say, okay, so in this case, for Newman, for example, Newman will get 212 grams per meal. So I've taken that 212 grams and I put it into a measuring cup to see what that measures out to. What I'm trying to do is make this as easy as possible for me to continue feeding my dogs this way because they're doing exceptionally well on it. Newman is a dog who has digestive challenges and he's got none when I'm feeding this way. So I want to continue to find ways to make it, encourage myself to keep feeding this way and make it easy, make it as easy on the time as possible because again, we're all busy. And we don't necessarily have time to stand there and make food for our dogs every day. So this makes it really fast and easy. So I've worked it out. So now I've made this recipe before. So I know I can just go to my book. I know somebody else who uses a spreadsheet. You can do it any way that's comfortable for you or easy for you. But I find with this book, I just go to the book. I look at what I'm stumbling around in the morning. I can say, okay, I've got R12. I go to the book. Here's R12. Here's how much I need to feed my dogs. So in the case of Newman and Emma, they will get 2/3 of a cup at each meal. So I know that I just need to go and there's my 2/3 of a cup mark. I don't want to rip anybody off. So there's 2/3 of a cup for Newman. Emma and her slow metabolism, she gets the same amount as Newman, so she's going to get 2/3 of a cup as well. And that's a little bit more. So there's Emma's 2/3 of a cup. And Quizzer, he's the young guy who's barking at the door. He gets more. He gets almost 2 cups. So he's going to get, there's one of his. And he's a young, very tall dog who's growing a lot. So he gets a little bit more because we have a little trouble keeping weight on him. So he gets actually quite a bit more. So that's their meal. They don't need anything else. All the omegas, all the oils, everything they need, all the vitamins, the minerals, everything they need is in here. It's all balanced. It's all complete. And that's how simple it is to feed my dogs now. No more supplements on top. I don't need to add anything. I was adding 3 and 4 supplements at a time to each meal when I was feeding my dogs kibble. Nothing else goes on to this, and they are doing better than they've ever done. So I'm thrilled. It's easy. This is the easiest way that I've found. Everybody finds their own way to do it, but I found this way to be really easy, and I don't ever have to try and figure out the calories or the amount that I need to feed of R12 again, unless I change the amount of calories that I'm feeding my dogs. So this will go into the refrigerator and will last me several meals for my dogs. It actually is quite economical when you figure out how long a recipe will last. Generally, I triple the recipes because I have 3 dogs, but really, you know, the ingredients that went into this were not expensive. This was not a time-consuming recipe to make, and it is going to last several days. I have very active dogs, so they do get fed quite a few more calories than your average pet dog would get. They all do dog sports. They do agility. They do frisbee. They swim. They're very, very active dogs. So they do get fed a little bit more than a pet dog would get fed, just because they need more calories than most dogs do. So even having said that, this will still last, and this is a double recipe, but this will still last probably another 5 meals, 4 to 5 meals, depending on you know, how long it stretches. But it will last me certainly another 4 meals. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll put this into the container that it's going to live in the fridge. It will keep, well, it keeps fairly indefinitely in the freezer. Once I pull it out of the fridge, it's definitely going to last, it would last longer in the fridge. It would stay fresh longer in the fridge than the time it's going to take me to use it up. So yeah, it's definitely going to keep in the fridge. I just keep them in these containers. I find it really easy to store in the fridge. They're a good size, they're a good shape, and I can just do that, put them in the, put it in the container, and again, I label it. I just take a piece of adhesive, some sort of tape, take my Sharpie, R12, and this actually will not go in the freezer. It normally would, but it'll go in the fridge because I'll continue using this until it's done, and just pull another recipe out of my freezer when I need more.